So say we have a sphere there. We'll create another sphere. I'm hitting W to move that up. Hit R to scale it. I'm going to hit spacebar here, just because we can already see it's a little bit difficult. If I hit Alt and left click, I can sort of move around this object. And I can hit W again. I can try and eyeball that as best I can. I can try and zoom in to get it right. But we see it's a little bit tricky, just even to start. So if I hit spacebar and go into spacebar in one of my orthographic views, and then this will just give me very easy. It'll allow me to just line that up a lot quicker, a lot more precisely. I hit spacebar again, click spacebar in my perspective view, and now I'm sort of back in here. But actually, now that I'm looking at this, I want to just drag it in a little bit there. So now that we have two of our spheres, we'll give you another command. You probably you might have thought this to yourself already. That's Control D. We can just duplicate that sphere. Notice I still have my move tool up as I'm switching between objects. That's sort of an important thing to note. So that move tool is sort of like a tool. It's sort of like having a hammer in your hand. And unless I switch it, it will continue to stay up. So sometimes if you have like something in your way, a big manipulator or something like that, I do hit Q to just go to selection, and it sometimes allows it. It's a little bit easier to select things. So I do sort of hit Q to select things a little bit. That whole keeping the tool up and having something there will come into play more down the line. So we'll just sort of keep that in mind for later. Okay, so that'll be the head of our snowman guy. Let's do a little bit of his arms. So we'll make a cylinder here. Pull that up. I'm going to hit R to scale, and I'll start making that a little bit longer. Here's a situation where you might be sort of inclined to just grab that in perspective view and move it over to here. You want to try and resist that temptation, and you want to hit spacebar, go into your front view, and move it in here, because this will make sure that it's not throwing it off in terms of depth in where you're moving it, by putting it back here or putting it back here. And also I can just hit Control Z, universal undo command. So one thing as we're sort of starting to put this guy's arm in place here is you might notice that the manipulator is in the middle of this object, which makes it not the easiest to rotate and place. So we do have the ability to change where that manipulator is. So say if I want to like move this guy's arm down a little bit, I have to then rotate it, and then I'm moving it. You can sort of start to see how that could become a little bit difficult if you're constantly hitting your manipulators over on the left here. But I'm just hitting W and then E to rotate. If I move this manipulator by holding down the D key, you can sort of start to see it change there. I can move it to the base of this arm, and I can hit my E key to rotate, and now I've created a pivot for that, which then makes it a lot easier both to scale and rotate. If I select this object, I can hit delete, and I could delete that. I could duplicate that by hitting Control D. I'll hit E to rotate. and then I have my arm in place there. If I wanted to, I could maybe like duplicate this now, rotate it, scale it in some, Control D to duplicate, E to rotate. Let's do one more. So not the prettiest, but we have it there. So it's working. So another thing to sort of hear, maybe another sort of concept I'll start to introduce, and I may be starting to go a little bit fast here, so I might need to slow down. But say you start making a bunch of stuff on one side, there are mirroring options. We're not quite there yet in terms of all the things I would suggest we learn before we're mirroring, but this is sort of a good opportunity to introduce grouping. So we have a bunch of objects here. If I hit Control G, that will group the objects so that I can move them, but it still allows me to also continue to move them individually. If I hit the up key, I can access the up key on your keyboard. You can just access that group again. Notice my manipulator is off. So this is a good opportunity for us to move that manipulator back to where we want it. If I hold down D, see a change, and then I can move that into place, and then I'll just rotate this around, W to move, boom, now I have my my hands all set up. So let's create now, let's just make, let's go with a cone, we'll make his pipe, so hit R to scale that, pull this a little bit in this direction. So here's where you could even, get into a little bit of trouble as well on placing this. So I'm going to rotate this. Here's where having the orthographic views really help, because I can help line it up in position in my top view, as well as in my side view to bring it down to where I want. And I'll just introduce another little hotkey here, which is the J key, which will rotate in degrees for you. So it'll rotate in 15-degree increments. So if you're ever picky about wanting to get things exactly 90 degrees, if you hold down the J key, it will snap in 15-degree increments. And if we look at our channel box over here on the right, we can see that it says 90. So I know that I've moved this object exactly 90 degrees. Could also type it in on my channel box over there on the right. So I'm going to hit my W key to move that, R key to zoom in a little bit, make it a little longer, a little smaller. Sort of get it in place there. So that works pretty well. That should just about do it. We'll drop in a couple of eyes. Spacebar to go into this view, and hit R to scale it. Check on that eye. Drop it back in here. Control D to duplicate that. And why don't we just drop in, I'll duplicate that. This might be a good time to sort of talk about sort of my unshaded views here. So you've probably noticed in this view, we have, it's shaded. So we have this gray grayness covering what is our 3D model. If I click it, we can see the lines, which is my wireframe. And if I hit spacebar and I look at my orthographic views, we can see the wireframe, the unshaded view of this object here. On your number pad, if you hit 4, you can bring up your wireframe at any given time. If you hit 5, you can bring up your shaded view. If I hit spacebar and I go into this viewport, I can do the same thing. So if I hit 5, inside of here I bring up my shaded view. If I go 4, I can bring up my wireframe. 4 wireframe, 5 shaded. You'll probably have an inclination to hit a lot of these numbers right now. Don't hit 8, or you'll be hitting Q and you'll be going back to your viewports here a lot. It goes into a paint mode. A lot of people do hit that to start out. You may have hit it by me saying not to just now. Try hitting Q and go into your 4-port view over here on the left. That'll reset. And anytime you have problems with your views, you can reset them over here. But yeah, for right now, just keep in mind 4, which is wireframe, and 5, which is shaded. So I'm just going to duplicate this. We'll put one more of these in here. And we'll give them just a little bit. Whoops. Oh, I should talk about that as well. So by shift is generally a positive, or it's an additive modifier. So if I hit shift and click, I can select multiple objects and move them at once, which I could do for this as well. So if I hit shift and click, I can move 2 of these at once. Control is generally a negative modifier. So if I hit control and select this, now I'm back down to 1. If I was to hit shift, click both of these, I have 3. Control and click will remove that one. So there will be some times where I'll be hitting shift to add to certain things and control to negate certain things, and it's sort of just a good thing to keep in mind, especially if we'll probably get into Photoshop at some point, and just any sort of program in general. It's not universal, but in general, shift will add and control will negate. So it's sort of a good thing to sort of just be aware of. So let's select some of these spheres. I'm going to do a Control G, we'll group it. I'm going to do a Control D to duplicate it. I'm going to hit W to move this. I'm going to hit D, which is that manipulator modifier to allow me to move my manipulator. Bring up E to rotate. I'm going to hold down J to get that to straight 180. I'll actually type it into the channel box here. Hit D to move that manipulator again, and then I'm going to move this by hitting W. So if you've been able to sort of track throughout that entire time, we can see I just hit a lot of hotkeys there. If you are moving or changing hotkeys by hitting stuff on the left here, you can see something like that might be pretty complicated. Over time, it gets a lot easier, and it can go pretty quick, and you can see it just makes your life a lot quicker rather than always constantly moving each individual thing in place. And over time, it can make things cleaner because you're creating more symmetry that way, which sometimes you will want. So let's put one more here. So just as sort of a preview, I think tomorrow, or hopefully sometime soon, I will do part 2 of this, where we'll start creating more complex objects.